What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, legendary promoter, top-ranked CEO, Bob Arum, he states that what's seen as the biggest fight in the sport of boxing, the super fight between his fighter, undefeated, three-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, currently the WBO welterweight world champion, who is widely considered the number one fighter in the world, Terence Bud Crawford, and undefeated, unified WBC, IBF, welterweight world champion superstar boxer, who is widely considered top 3 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, Errol Spence Jr. Bob Arum weighs in on that fight. Whether it'll happen or not, Bob Arum states that he believes it's Errol Spence that's holding up the fight. But to push that to the side, Bob Arum says this would do the biggest pay-per-view numbers, but their focus is 8-division world champion, iconic Filipino superstar boxer, Manny "Pac-Man" Pacquiao. Now, one thing you have to look at, Bob Arum says that Errol Spence is holding up the Terence Crawford fight, but their number one objective is to face off against Manny Pacquiao. So that's a contradiction. If your number one focus is Manny Pacquiao, then you're not putting your best foot forward in negotiating with Errol Spence. But nonetheless, Bob Arum states that the Errol Spence Terence Crawford fight is the biggest pay-per-view fight. But he says, as far as revenue goes, for Terence Crawford, the biggest fight he could have is Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao. And it made a lot of sense when Bob Arum broke it down. He says, popularity-wise in the sport of boxing, Errol Spence, Terence Crawford, huge pay-per-view numbers. He says, but as far as revenue, money earned, investors investing, Manny Pacquiao. Because Manny Pacquiao is the bigger star. Okay, Manny Pacquiao is going to get investors to invest and put up the money necessary for Manny Pacquiao and Terence Crawford, because Manny Pacquiao is involved. Now, as far as on the competitive side, more boxing fans will tune in to see Errol Spence and Terence Crawford because it's more of a 50-50 fight. But when it comes to Terence Crawford and Manny Pacquiao, Terence Crawford is going to be viewed as the odds-on favorite, and most boxing pundits, boxing fans, and media, they're going to pick Terence Crawford because they understand that Manny Pacquiao is now 42 years of age. He's turned back the clock once with the Keith Thurman fight. How many times can he defy the odds? When is Father Time going to tap him on the shoulder and say, we had enough? And we understand that Terence Crawford is in his absolute prime. It's a bad matchup, even if Manny Pacquiao was in his prime, because Terence Crawford is a closer. He can switch from southpaw to orthodox fluidly. He transitions from offense to defense fluidly, and he has power in both his left and right hand. He has great foot movement, and he has extremely long arms, 74-inch arms at 5'8". Manny Pacquiao is at 5'6" with a 67-inch arm reach. So what gave Manny Pacquiao trouble throughout his career? Guys with great timing, guys that can control the distance, guys with great jabs, and guys with power that are accurate. Terence Crawford represents all of those things. What else gives Manny Pacquiao trouble? Guys that have great footwork. That's ultimately his kryptonite. And Terence Crawford has great footwork. So with that said, the hardcore boxing fans essentially understand that Terence Crawford more than likely is going to defeat Manny Pacquiao. But you have Manny Pacquiao, such a big icon. Manny Pacquiao, represents so much more that he'll sell. So Bob Arum is saying that if Manny Pacquiao deal is done with Terence Crawford, even with the 40 million, 10 million split, 40 going to Pacquiao, 10 million go to Terence Crawford, he says that Terence Crawford stands to make so much money on the back end of that because of the investments. Talking about revenue, talking about closed circuits, things of that nature. There's going to be a lot more interest because Manny Pacquiao's name carries a lot more weight. And I have to agree with that when Bob Arum breaks it down in those fractions, right? So, but Bob Arum did state that Errol Spence is holding up the fight. If he didn't, He would inform Al Heyman, PBC founder and advisor, Premier Boxing Champions, that he wanted this fight. They could start negotiating and getting a deal done. But his number one objective is Manny Pacquiao. Well, you're moonlighting with Errol Spence and you're focused on Manny Pacquiao because it represents the bigger payday. So you're not really trying to negotiate with Errol Spence. You can't negotiate with both and have your focus on both. Your number one objective is Manny Pacquiao. So therefore, Errol Spence is not holding up the fight. What's holding up the fight is the fact that 60-40 split is not suffice for you and Terence Crawford. But what is a big split difference between Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao as far as the $10 million? He doesn't believe that Terence Crawford could make $10 million fighting Errol Spence Jr., but he believes that Terence Crawford can make $10 million fighting Manny Pacquiao because investment groups will come in, closed circuits, and things of that nature. So Bob does have a point. Obviously, Manny Pacquiao is a global superstar. He's not a hardcore boxing fan's favorite. He's not a local favorite. He's not a United States favorite or just he's global. Okay. So with that said, Bob Arum does have a point as far as revenue. That's what Manny Pacquiao represents. It's just like Floyd Mayweather. If Floyd Mayweather was to re-enter the sport of boxing, fully engage and fight Errol Spence or Terence Crawford, it represents so much more on the back end, right? And so that's what ultimately Bob Arum is getting at when he says that Manny Pacquiao gets Terence Crawford to earn more money, but he gets more pay-per-view sold with Errol Spence. Now, this just goes to show, though, that Bob Arum does believe Errol Spence is a massive star, right? And Bob Arum is saying that essentially Errol Spence is avoiding the fight. He says he continues to say he don't want the fight. When we never heard Errol Spence say he didn't want the fight. He actually said take a 60-40 split and we can make the fight happen. With that said, I'm finding it hard-pressed to see Bob Arum come off for $40 million for Manny Pacquiao. So Bob Arum is going to do his searching to get an investment group to put up $50 million essentially for this fight. But Bob Arum, like he stated, he says that maybe Errol Spence, now get this, he says that maybe Errol Spence is hesitant because he understands that he's waiting for things to clear up as far as the global pandemic, where things could start to ease up and you can start to have fans in attendance and you can start to bring in revenue from the fans, closed circuits, live gates, concessions, things of that nature, right? But you got to look at it from this standpoint. Bob Arum is doing the same thing. As he stated, he's not going to put on any more fights in the bubble because he lost money. So Bob Arum is stating that he's going to take the show now on the road. He says that Florida is going to be their first stop. He believes it's going to be in April. Then he states that they're definitely going to, they're going to start to do their research and look into having fights in Texas and other places, right? He says that, he's looking to place these fights where at the least they have limited capacity of fans coming in because he can't continue to lose money and revenue. He says that the fight with Miguel Berchelt, Oscar Valdez could have been at the Staples Center and would have been packed out, but they lost money on it essentially. This was an interview he did with Barbershop Conversations, Fred, and he stated that, this is definitely not in the business. He's definitely not in the business of continuing to lose money because they're definitely losing money. Teofimo Lopez Vasil Lomachenko was a big fight. There's no fans involved. So now they're going to do their research. They're going to inquire about going to Texas, but he expects his first show to be in Florida. This is something I stated when I said when it comes to Terence Crawford and all of these fighters, Bob Arum should have been packed up and started to move, taking the show on the road and making a traveling thing, because there are places that have limited amount of capacity of fans in attendance. So Bob Arum says that with things starting to open up, he's looking to have a show in June with around the Puerto Rican Day Parade time in New York in June at Madison Square Garden with Teofimo Lopez and Edgar Berlanga. That's going to be massive, okay? So he's looking to place on these fights around that time. New York, February 23rd, next week. New York is going to start to allow, I believe it's 23% of capacity of fans are going to start to be allowed to attend the Barclays Center, Brooklyn Nets, Knicks, New York Yankees, New York Mets, the Islanders, the Rangers, start to attend, fans to be in attendance, 23%. So 23% in Madison Square Garden is better than having 0% in Las Vegas. So this is what Bob Arum is looking to do. I understand what he says when he says that Manny Pacquiao represents more money, because you're talking about tickets, you're talking about T-shirts, you're talking about, merchandise, you're talking about things of that nature. Because Manny Pacquiao is a global superstar and you put him in a fight of this magnitude, although he'll be the underdog, it's going to sell. It's going to do big. And that's what he's stating. But in return, he says that their number one focus and objective is Manny Pacquiao, but they're saying that Errol Spence is avoiding the fight. Can't have it both ways. But let's see how this unfolds. He says that if Manny Pacquiao fight don't come to fruition, they're going to turn their attention to two-time welterweight world champion superstar Showtime Sean Porter. He says that essentially they have Sean Porter on hold right now just to see if they could work out a deal with Manny Pacquiao. And if they can't, their plan B is Sean Porter. So let's see how this plays out and unfolds. But that's all I got for y'all. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notification. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share your videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.